Welcome to the Vinyl Brotherhood. Thanks for joining us again, everyone. Please make yourselves comfortable. We have a very important all-new record to talk about with you today, and that would be the latest from Franz Ferdinand, the indie rock band from Glasgow, Scotland. This is their sixth album, entitled The Human Fear, and they don't make that many albums these days. The wait between every subsequent release grows by a couple of years each time, but at least they've always had something to say, creatively speaking. And they've been a surprisingly consistent group. We are well past the early 2000s era of garage rock revival from which Franz Ferdinand emerged, but I say that they've only aged gracefully, so my hope and expectation is that The Human Fear will be yet another landmark release for this amazing band. Let's go ahead and take this LP over to the record player, give it a spin, and dive right into The Human Fear. As per usual, we're going to start by analyzing this beautiful album cover. Really cool concept. You have the band members kind of in a spiral here, including a couple of new band members. We have Audrey on the drums now, and Julian was there for Always Ascending, I believe, but Dino is on guitar now. And of course, Alex and Bob have been around for forever. And we have the gatefold. Pretty cool. And I love this beautiful orange spine. It's gonna look great on the shelf. So I won't waste too much of your time with this personal aside, but I'd just like to say that Franz Ferdinand has been a very important and crucial part of my musical story. Their first two records were my introduction to indie rock back in 2005 or 2006. To a high school freshman who never ventured too far from my pop punk and radio rock bubble, the first two Franz Ferdinand records sounded wildly exotic and foreign to me. It completely redefined my understanding of what music could be, what it could sound like. I couldn't identify the influences at the time, but the perfect blend of angular post-punk, classic European disco, and Doors-style avant-garde just captivated me. And even now, I understand where Franz Ferdinand was pulling from and what they were trying to accomplish, but to me, they are still distinct, special, and important. So with each album since then, they fiddled around with their sound, explored different avenues, even switched up a couple of members, and yet the legacy has remained intact. And The Human Fear's first single, Audacious, lives up to that sterling legacy without trying too hard, or rather, they make the catchy glam pinch opener sound easy, as if infectious melodies and punchy rhythm sections are all just second nature to Franz Ferdinand. I like how the song starts smaller, somewhat like a garagey lo-fi, not too unlike their first album before a subtle expansion to Franz Ferdinand in HD in time for the first chorus. Their current arsenal just presents too many opportunities to revert to their simpler indie rock setup from their heyday. Their previous album, Always Ascending, even introduced us to their full-time keys man, Julian, who we just talked about. The Human Fear makes a great use of this band's ever-broadening skill set. For example, they've dipped their toes in electropop music over the years, but Hooked might be their most unabashedly pop recording yet, and props to them for preserving the Franz element in the process, with detuned synthesizers allowing us to be more at ease. I thought it was a fairly solid dance tune, and then I heard that it was at least partially inspired by the birth of Alex's baby, and now it's kind of weird to me, but that's neither here nor there. Else around the record, Bob is given plenty of opportunities to shine, which is a treat for longtime fans, as he is the only other founding member besides Alex who has stuck around. He shines on Everyday Dreamer, Bar Lonely, and especially on Tell Me I Should Stay, which I would argue is the strongest track on the album. It offers brief glimpses at some of the things we've come to love from Franz Ferdinand that don't feature as prominently on other songs. For example, the post-chorus guitar phrase that's decidedly angular and off-kilter, that's classic Franz Ferdinand. But familiarity isn't what makes this song stand out to me. It has the most ambitious scope of any track and arguably the most involved production, and the band just executes it phenomenally. Alex demonstrates the highs and lows of his baritone and delivers an exceptional vocal performance on an album of exceptional vocal performances. The great frontman that he is. I say this with one possible outlier in mind. Is it just me, or does Alex's vocal sound a little off on Black Eyelashes? Not just tonally, but the energy of his performance isn't up to his usual standard either, as if he rolled out of bed with a light fever to put on one really, decent take and just call it a day. Please let me know if I'm imagining that. And speaking of Black Eyelashes, I would say it's my favorite. It's not my favorite song on The Human Fear, but it's definitely worth mentioning as we see Franz Ferdinand take a bold plunge into the world of Greek rebetiko music. They make it work without it being jarring or feeling out of place on the album. So picture Black Eyelashes at one extreme and Hooked at the opposite extreme. And in between, they sprinkle all kinds of fun surprises, expanding at every opportunity. And I like that. If they're only going to give us one album per decade, they may as well not play it safe. And you can tell that the band is enjoying themselves, which is always reassuring to see that from a band this deep into their career. Now, the question is, how far does that wave of inspiration take them? Do they capture the same spark that once allowed them, to do so much with relatively little? Sometimes, yeah, and quite effortlessly. Other times, not so much. Let me explain. The Birds, the last song of the album, kicks off with a promising enough guitar hook, and that's all well and good, but a couple minutes later, you realize two things. The guitar riff has been repeated on a loop for a while. We haven't progressed in any substantial way. And Alex sounds like he's improvising his vocals, and not in a good, inspired way. It is, unfortunately, indicative of The Human Fear's biggest issue, a weak foundation, which is to say that too many songs in and of themselves aren't all that they could be. They dress up the tunes in creative and exciting ways, and credit where it's due, they largely succeed in the execution, and they sound like they care. There are plenty of out-of-the-box ideas to go around, but remove all of that, and I'm not sure that the material is especially memorable. Some of it feels pretty weightless, especially in the first half. Song after song, we get these brilliant verses leading into rote, repetitive, unmusical choruses. It starts to get kind of frustrating until Night or Day swings in to get us on the right track again. In the moment, the songs that make up The Human Fear make for good listening, but I've already listened to this whole thing front to back 7 or 8 times, and I still struggle to remember much of it, except for maybe Audacious, Tell Me I Should Stay, and maybe Hooked, which for better or worse lives up to its name. The issues have just been hard for me to ignore, but rest assured there are a handful of winners in there, and every time I listen to that middle portion of the record, a part of me just wishes that the rest of the album would catch up. And I appreciate that The Human Fear doesn't really feel samey and that the whole project seems like it came from a sincere place. And maybe some of the songs just needed more time in the oven, which is weird to say given that they had 6 years, but it definitely seems like some tracks got more TLC than others. I hope I'm not holding them to some impossible standard that is just purely like a result of my own nostalgia, but there's always next time, which, next time could be another 6 or more years from now, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. We'll get there when we get there. Let's head on back. When all is said and done, The Human Fear is totally listenable, very much an adequate record at its worst, and a delightful amusement at its best. But I think you know where I'm going with this next. Franz Ferdinand has set a very lofty standard for themselves, and while some of their past records are better than others, I think this is the first one that didn't really blow my mind and become my whole life for a week or two. I even question if the better songs deserve a place on my Franz Ferdinand playlist, but perhaps I'm being too harsh. It really isn't a bad album. The performances, for the most part, are there, and it's cool to see them take their sound into bold new directions while not totally abandoning the qualities that make them them. Because of that courageously creative spirit and because it's consistently unoffensive, I think I can give The Human Fear a 7 out of 10. I enjoy it, but it hurts that it doesn't mean a lot more to me. And I almost feel obligated to keep trying with this one. I'll probably be spinning it for a couple more weeks and see where we're at then. So what did you think of the Human Fear? Best Franz album yet? A little less than the best? I'm curious to know what you think, so don't be afraid to chime in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button or maybe subscribing if you've not done so yet. And I suppose that's all we have for today, so please enjoy the rest of your weeks, and thanks so much for giving us a bit of your time. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned because we have more on the horizon, but until then, cheers. We'll see you very soon right here at the Vinyl Brotherhood.